Good evening and welcome to the special Vote 2014 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight's show is a debate sponsored by Clean Elections. We'll hear from candidates competing in the Democratic primary for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. As with all of Arizona Horizon's debates, this is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates for one of the state's most important offices. As such, interjections and even interruptions are allowed, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we will do our best to make sure that that happens. The state superintendent's office oversees all of Arizona's public schools, including charter schools. Two Democratic candidates are competing to be Arizona's next top schools chief. They are, in alphabetical order, Arizona State University education professor David Garcia and high school English teacher Sharon Thomas. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening and closing statements. Earlier, we drew numbers to see who goes first, and that honor goes to David Garcia.
Ted, thank you very much. My name is David Garcia, Dr. David Garcia, and I am working to be Arizona's next Superintendent of Public Instruction. I'm an Arizona success story. I am a first-generation college student. I'm an Army veteran who had to work their way through college and eventually got a PhD in education policy from the University of Chicago. What differentiates me is that I am the only candidate with both classroom and state-level policy experience. I've worked at the state legislature. I was a former associate superintendent for the state of Arizona, which means I was in the office right next door. And what that means for Democratic voters, what that means for Arizona, is that I'm ready to lead day one. The office is too important, and education is too important in Arizona to learn on the job. What I bring is both the experience and the leadership necessary to put Arizona in the lead and to have the kind of impact we need at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the next opening statement, we turn to Sharon Thomas.
Thank you, Ted. Good evening. I'm Sharon Thomas. I'm a mother, a businesswoman, and a certified experienced public school teacher. And I'm running for Superintendent of Public Instruction because I believe a real teacher matters. We've had more than 20 years of so-called policy experts running our schools. We will never legislate our way to student success. We can only educate our way to student success. I'm the only candidate with public school, kindergarten to high school experience, as well as college teaching experience. I'm the only candidate who is a certified teacher, and certification matters. I'm the only candidate experienced in teaching teachers the Common Core curriculum, in writing curriculum in the Common Core, in piloting the PART tests, and in training teachers and implementing the core. A real teacher matters. We need an experienced educator to lead our schools to success.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get started with what seems to be certainly the impression that Arizona students rank poorly in a variety of tests in a variety of ways. Why is that? How do you change that?
Well, first off, I don't think this is an issue of Arizona students. I think this is an issue of Arizona's policy makers and the commitments and lack thereof we've had at the state level. I disagree. One of the issues we've had is we haven't had policy experts working in this position. We've had politicians in this position. What we need is somebody who understands state level policy. Ted, you know this is a state level policy position, working with the State Board of Education, working with the legislature. What we need to impact those kinds of work is we need that change at the state level so that we can have the policies necessary to bring Arizona up from the bottom.
How do we bring Arizona
Ted,
up from the bottom?
policy is not going to do it. This goes back to my statement about educating. And my experience in the classroom tells me our students are struggling to reach these achievements that we are setting up for them, especially as the rigor of the Common Core comes in. We are not providing the resources and the support for our students. And this does come from actions through the legislature, as well as the lack of leadership, as Dr. Garcia said, from our superintendent. We need a superintendent who will reach out, work with the districts, and work with the legislators to make sure that our district gets those resources. Teacher training, professional development needs to be one of the areas that our superintendent of instruction focuses on, not just being administrative. It's not just policy wonk. It's about educating students and preparing teachers.
Lack of resources a factor? How much?
It's a huge factor, and in fact, it's going to be one of my very first and most important issues, Ted. My opponent in a recent debate said she would eventually get to education funding. We can't eventually get to it.
That's not what I said.
We need to get to it right now. To get down there, we need to have an impact on school finance policy. and pushing the legislature to fund, to restore public school funding, which is very, very important, but also to put in place targeted programs that we know are going to be successful.
Did you say the funding was down the line a little bit? Let's be honest about what I said.
We have problems with our funding. I did not say I'd get to funding down the line. I said I would do. And I come from a family of many medical people. So I said I focus it like a triage. We're going to look at what is immediately needed right now. And that's going to be things like technology and some of the resources. We have to do something about funding. But coming in, as my opponent stated in that interview, that this is a honeymoon period and we have a short time to do everything. I'm looking at this as building relationships over a period of time with our legislators. That's what is lacking now. This is a shared responsibility. So we have to do triage. We have to look at funding. But this is a long-term, 4 to 8 years that we have to
Ted,
really
I think that is a great point. We do need to build those relationships, and we've built them as part of this campaign. Our state-level Democratic leaders, almost every single one of them has endorsed my campaign. I have also gotten support, the kind of broad-based support you need to win, from chambers of commerce as well as our key education organizations. I agree, we need that kind of leadership and collaboration, and that's exactly what I bring to this office.
Inflation-adjusted funding, we just found out that a whole lot of money is on the line here.
Yes, sir.
Where does that money need to go?
The money needs to go back into the schools immediately, and the first thing we need to do is meet the needs of the oncoming test, the teacher training that's needed for the PARCC test, the resources for the students, the financing for the tutoring, the ELOs, the extended learning opportunities for the students, so they'll be able to meet the PARCC test. These are some of the first things we need to do, as well as giving teachers the support they need, because the new evaluation is also coming in along with the new test that is just coming like a train for our districts that are just so poorly prepared.
Where does that money need to go?
Ted, I think that you're jumping the gun a little bit. We still have a battle with the legislature to get that money. And that's where the superintendent needs to spend their time and energy. As you know, the legislature is going to have to make some tough decisions in order to bring that $1.6 billion to our schools. That's the role of the superintendent of public instruction.
Talk more about that, because I think a lot of people see the idea of the superintendent of public instruction, superintending public instruction, as opposed to hanging out there at the Capitol trying to get lawmakers to do X, Y, and Z. You say different?
Well, what the superintendent of public instruction does, there's some key things. Number one, they sit on our two key policy boards, the State Board of Education and the Arizona State Board for Charter Schools. They set state level policy. It's a unique position that nobody else in the state has. Second, the legislature counts on the superintendent of public instruction and the Department of Education for analysis and research. Last time I was here, it was on some research I did on a performance pay plan that had an impact on changing legislation at the state level. That's what our superintendent of public instruction does.
The importance of dealing with the legislature. You talked about having politicians in these roles. Do you need a politician in this role to get something done?
Well, I would say that we're all politicians once we file paperwork and once a campaign starts and when we see the dirty politics that have happened coming out of my opponent's campaign. So we're politicians. Mr. Garcia is a politician as much as the rest of us. We need someone who has political skills in working with legislators, and that's where my years of experience as a community activist, as a lobbyist, working with AEA as a teacher lobbyist, and working within politics. My endorsements don't come from those legislators, as many of them. Where they come from is students, teachers, parents, and many people that are currently running for office to change the face. And that's what we need to do, is change the face as well as work to build those relationships.
I can't let you get past this idea of dirty politics. What are you talking about here?
Well, certainly you know I was attacked. The county recorders wanted to sue Garcia's campaign to refund the money that they invested in spending checking signatures when we had more than 4,000 good signatures. That's not the kind of politics Democrats should be playing against each other.
Dirty politics?
Ted, we didn't attack at all. We checked signatures. I expect every good campaign to check signatures. Now, one of the things that's different here, one of the things to check here, Ted, is I'm not running for an office. I've never run for an office before. I'm running for this office. And that's the difference between my opponent and myself. As for the legislature, it's very key to know that the Arizona Education Association has backed my campaign. Why? Because they know I have a long history of having an impact at the state level.
That's not what Andrew Morrill told me why. Andrew Morrill told me it was the money. I'm an excellent candidate, according to Andrew Morrill. He's known me for many years. I've been a member of the AEA for more than 10 years. since I've been a teacher. Andrew told me I was an excellent candidate. I knew the issues well, but there was one reason, and that was because I'm a clean candidate. They thought Mr. Garcia would reach that $500,000 he's claiming he will reach. And they were swayed
this is a
by
great
the
one.
money.
This is a
How do
great
you
one
respond to that?
I don't respond for Andrew. I don't speak for him, but I'm happy to bring him on board. I have a long history of winning issues at the state legislature with AAEA. That's the reason why they back me. I'm not going to speak for Andrew, but you know him well enough to bring him on board and have him speak for himself.
And we might talk about that money, because I am a clean candidate. This is a clean elections debate. I'm clean candidate because there will not be dark money, there will not be ALEC money, there will not be private school, charter school. Clean elections puts the power in the voters' hands, not the donors' hands, and that's who I will be beholden to,
Ted,
the voters and the students.
We are on the same page. There's no dark money. There's no ALEC money coming in. I'm going to tell you who has backed my campaign. Planned Parenthood has gotten behind my campaign. The Arizona Education Association, the Maricopa Democratic Party, and the majority of my, almost over 84% of my donors are less than $100. They're the rank and file Democrats that want to see a change, and they're behind my campaign.
Last point on this. Does it make a difference who's endorsing you? Does it make a difference that all these folks are endorsing you?
That's why I've gone for teacher, student, parent endorsements. I didn't go after legislator endorsements, because those are not the people who I think I am beholden to. I talk to my students. That's who got me to run, as former students, my fellow teachers, parents that I have been experienced with for many years. And I work with many candidates running across the state, and they are backing my campaign because they know we need a change. And I should say I am endorsed by both Sandra Kennedy and Paul Newman, the highest elected Democrats in Arizona of recent time, since we don't have any, and they have endorsed me because of the years they have known me and their experience with me as a leader.
Okay, I want to get back to funding here.
Sure.
The idea of basing funds for teachers and for districts on academic improvement, good idea?
Ted, we've got to be clear, it is an academic improvement. It's standardized test scores. The evaluation system and the accountability system is based almost exclusively on standardized test scores. 96% of the letter grades, which I know you know pretty well, 96% of those letter grades is based off of standardized tests.
Good idea or bad idea?
I think that basing overemphasis on standardized testing is a bad idea. Why? Because students, there are no multiple choices in life. And the more we get students ready for multiple choice tests, the less prepared they are for life after high school. What I'm going to focus on, and be very clear, this will be one of my signature issues, is measuring what matters. We need to change those accountability systems so you have real world outcomes that matter to students and parents. And that change happens at the legislature with the very folks who have endorsed my campaign, giving us a hand.
You know, Ted, I think you asked a different question than Mr. Garcia answered. I believe you were talking about the evaluation of teachers is going to be based on student achievement. Is that what you're speaking about?
My question is that a good idea?
That's not, Mr. Garcia answered that incorrectly then, because each district based the amount of student achievement from test scores and other measures, which comes from the district development of their assessment, of their evaluation, their assessment of teachers. That can be through legislation, which a policy person should know, 33% to 50%. AEA has recommended that districts use 33% on student achievement. Some districts, if you're familiar with the RAIL test, the McKeesa test that some are using, or the evaluation, excuse me, goes to the 50%. It is a good idea that that is examined, but not just the standardized test, and districts have that option to look at other measures of student growth. But student growth, excuse me, should be a factor in evaluating
tests.
teachers.
Even though districts have the option, their evaluation system is based off the standardized test. We have no meaningful discussion at the state level of having additional real-world indicators that should count. And that's going to be a change you're going to see under my administration.
And I do agree that we put too much emphasis on standardized testing. And as an experienced teacher, I know how many days we spent. We spent 36 days last year testing students, Ted, testing them and then retesting them and retesting them. Now, these were standardized tests. These weren't classroom tests. And that is a huge waste of classroom time. We need that time for teaching. We need to limit the amount of standardized tests. We need to pick one that works, and that needs to be our standard assessment.
You agree with that?
I agree, and that's what the state does, by the way. They pick a standardized assessment. We work with the with the State Board of Education. My opponent mentioned that it was John Huppenthal who was selected. It will be the State Board of Education. That is a policy decision, Ted. And picking that assessment is a very important role on behalf of the state, and one where I'm the only candidate who has experience not only in Arizona working on assessments, but in multiple states as well.
Let's talk about an assessment in particular.
Sure.
Common Core. Good idea for Arizona?
Well, that's not an assessment, Ted. Those are just standards.
Is it a good standard?
Decide.
Is it a good
Yes,
standard for Arizona?
I am the only candidate experienced with Common Core, and that's why I know that these standards, and I'm also experienced with Ames, which Mr. Garcia was, I believe, was part of bringing Ames in. These are far superior standards to the Ames standards. But we have to remember, this is some misinformation that's out there about Common Core. It is just an umbrella, goals that we try to achieve. We then, local control writes the curriculum. Our superintendent does and should be doing more to provide leadership in that curriculum and in the professional development and training for that. But we set the curriculum to meet those standards. Then we, as a state, pick that test. It may be Park, it could be better balanced on the other side of the country, is using that on the East Coast. So we pick the test that aligns to the core.
Better than Ames?
Oh, far better. And they're Arizona College Career Ready standards, Ted.
Common Core? No, they're
I
Common
agree.
Core.
Well, we need to make them ours.
One
we
thing
really
we
do.
need to be clear about here is that we've had standards in Arizona for over 20 years. Every iteration has been better than the one before because what students know and should be able to do changes over time. The state's role is not to do curriculum. It is at the local level. The state's role is to set the standards, and this one is very important, to work on an assessment that's going to measure those standards well. There's nobody else in this race that has that kind of state-level experience like I do.
So, Common Core, again, overall, good for Arizona, not so good for Arizona.
I think it's good for Arizona, but it needs to be implemented well, and there's what I can
Now,
do.
last year, Mr. Garcia, you did not like Common Core. What changed your mind?
It's actually not true at all. I've said the same thing repeatedly.
Well, you wrote against it
I'm in
on
favor
social
of high
media.
standards, and we need a high quality assessment of those standards. The third one, which differentiates me from other candidates, is Arizona needs to be in control of the accountability side of Common Core. That, to me, is where Arizona needs to take the lead nationally on issues of how we're going to use the assessment to measure our schools, our students, and our educators. And there, I believe Arizona should be in the driver's seat.
Why do you think he's against Common Core?
Well, because last year he was. He was for vouchers last year, too, and now he's not.
You were
So
for vouchers
That
last
is
year.
done a bit of
absolutely
flip-flopping.
untrue. Let's be absolutely clear about this. I am against vouchers. I've been against vouchers
That's
from
not
the
what you
very, very
wrote last
beginning.
year,
It's actually not
and
true.
it's not what
please,
you've written
please,
in your
Please look
research.
forward and find it. I
Oh,
am
I
against
have, yes.
vouchers.
And Common Core, you
Here's
were
the
not for
situation.
last year
Very, very
either.
clear. I'm against vouchers, Ted, for this reason. My job as superintendent of public
All
instruction.
vouchers or just the ESA?
I am against vouchers, period. I'm against vouchers because vouchers do not improve public schools, and the role of the superintendent of public instruction is to improve public schools. That is a steadfast position of mine.
Okay.
I would like to correct one thing that Mr. Garcia said. We're not using one standardized test. Our students are taking Ames, they're taking ACT, they're taking Stanford, and they're taking at least one other. I'm trying to remember all the names of all the tests we give our kids. We are multiple testing them. Now, that isn't all coming from the state. That does come from districts. But that's where the state needs to step in. And again, the state needs to do more than just administrative. We have to provide professional development and lead on this issue, or we're not going to legislate our way to student success.
Ted, I want to be clear. I said that the letter grades were based off standardized tests. That was fact-checked by the Arizona Republic, found out to be absolutely
Letter
true.
grades, not teacher
Absolutely, letter
evaluations.
grades.
Yeah,
And
letter
that-
grades
so
are based
that
on
is
that.
absolutely
Yes.
true.
I didn't
All right.
argue that point.
One last thing on Common Core, though. You've extolled the virtues of Common Core, yet I know.
Well,
I know.
yeah, there are some problems. I'm not saying they're perfect.
What are you saying then?
Excuse me. That's why I said they're Arizona College Career Ready standards. We need to look at them and make them ours, and they're not perfect, as no standard is perfect.
Well, I don't think anyone
But we
expects
need
perfection, but
okay.
what do you think of, because I know teachers, I know some teachers, they've had it up to here with a new assessment, a new test, a new idea, a new formula, and in
Over and
5
over.
years you're going to start all over again.
And
What do you
that's
say to
why
those
we need-
people?
That's why we need the buy-in, and that's why we have to have the leadership. Because if we don't have leadership that can engender buy-in from our teachers, we're not going to be successful. And you're right, it's not every 5 years, but as a teacher, I know that you see something new come on, and you're like, oh, this is going to be gone in a year. This is a problem at the district level because the new, bright and shiny, this looks good for today.
What do you tell teachers
Ted,
who say,
I think this
I'm breaking my neck here trying to catch up to
I
Common
think-
Core,
I
and
think
it
we've
could
got a
change in a
things.
couple of years?
I agree we need leadership, and I agree that we need teachers back, and that's the reason why our teachers have backed my campaign. My opponent keeps talking about district level activity. That is not what the state does. The state sets leadership at the legislative level and with the State Board of Education.
Who are we leading if we're not leading
and
the districts?
Look, the teachers are contracted out with local school districts, not with the state. You support school districts from a financial perspective to make sure that money flows well, but more particularly, you set policy and direction. And there's where my opponent has no state level experience to do those types of things.
Empowerment scholarship accounts. Good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea.
Why?
I believe in public schools, Ted. Let's keep our money in public schools. There is more than $1 million out there in so-called empowerment scholarship accounts that there is no accountability on where that money's gone. Once public funds go to a private entity, we also, number 2 on the superintendent's responsibilities is a fiduciary responsibility. We need to look at where that money's going, how it's being spent, what's happening with that. And that's the same thing I should say for privately owned charter schools. For-profit charter schools, ones that are not, I do not consider those public, because when public funds bypass students to go into private pockets, we need accountability for
even when those private pockets are lower income kids and families?
Well, that's kind of the hyperbole in the media, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's a legitimate question. Well, please answer.
Okay. The empowerment scholarship accounts are money given to the parents. They're not given to the schools. They can be used for whatever. There's no accountability for where those go. Are you saying we should just give money to poor people? I believe in supporting education for our economically struggling student through the best system we've got, and that's our public school system.
ESAs, especially those that target lower income families and kids, good or bad?
A couple things, Ted. My opponent has routinely confused private schools and charter schools. Charter schools are public schools. I am against ESAs because, and these are the scholarship accounts that go to students to go to privatization. Now, when it comes to, and I think you may be speaking here of the private school tax credit, which is different than an ESA. And in that respect, my concern with the tax credit is the designation that could be possible between individuals. But ESAs I'm against. They are vouchers for all intents and purposes. But I also want to be clear about one other thing with regard to charter schools. 20% of our charter schools serve at-risk students. 20% of our charter schools. So it's a very important distinction here that
but how well are they serving them is
the superintendent of public instruction is going to be in a position to lead both traditional public schools and charter schools.
Charter schools.
I would say that the for-profit charter schools, and we have 25 Walmart charter schools coming into Phoenix within the next 5 years, those are mostly going to economic struggling areas. They're not serving, they're taking advantage. And we've seen this through the recent reports. Charter schools are not meeting expectations. They're not doing as well as public schools in Arizona and across the country. There is no accountability. There is no equity as far as the expectations for teachers, curriculum, testing, standards within charter schools. There needs to be an equitable playing field. And the fact that these are going into economically struggling areas, for-profit charter schools, those are not meeting those kids' needs. They're taking advantage. And this is the new segregated schools. We've also seen these reports.
Ted, I don't know of the 25 Walmart schools coming in, so I can't speak to that. But what I do think what I should be concerned about is one of my concerns with my opponent is that she is looking to restrict school choice. That's not what we need to do.
That's not true.
I'm a chooser, Ted. I choose a traditional public school for my daughters.
No, you sent your kids to a Montessori charter school.
In the Phoenix Elementary School District. It's a magnet school that's set up for desegregation purposes. Now, what I would believe we need in Arizona are more school choices, and here's key, under a public school umbrella. Because there is no best school in the state, but there is the best school for your child, and more choices is healthy.
How do you respond to that?
I sent my kids to traditional public schools, not to charter schools. Although my daughter did go to a charter school for a short period of time, and when I walked in and they were misspelling tomato, I pulled her out. So I know a little bit of experience about charter schools. And I have sent my kids to traditional public schools, and I believe in those schools. I am not opposed to charter schools that are not for profit or charter schools that are under district auspices. Those serve an important service and can reach struggling students that need alternative methods of education.
Ted, this is one your viewers can fact check themselves. My daughters go to Faith North Montessori. It's a Phoenix Elementary School district. They can fact check that one and many of the other things my opponents have spread to date.
Yeah, Montessori is not a traditional public school. Montessori, you have to pay for the programming. Well, there's also a Montessori within Phoenix Union, and it is, well, you may go for free, but it's being paid for through it as a charter is. It's still a
Ted,
charter.
it's not being paid for as a charter. It's a magnet school, mostly through desegregation money. Voters can look at this and they're going to see that my opponent is wrong on this issue and many, many others as well.
We've got a couple minutes left here. Very quickly, should Arizona education standards, assessments, you define it, should they focus more on job preparation or a well-rounded education?
Well, I am an educator because I believe in education, and Thomas Jefferson is one of my heroes. I believe in a full education, but I am also a huge proponent of the CTE, the college technical or the career technical education, because there's no reason we can't do both. Our students can get a good, broad education, but they can also come out prepared, as they have from the school I just taught, to go right into the workforce.
Very quickly,
Ted,
please.
I don't accept that dichotomy. Getting students ready for a quality education is getting Arizona ready for a strong economy. One good example is we have students, you want to get students ready to be internationally competitive? First thing I would do is teach them multiple languages. We have students in this state who can leave bilingual, academically proficient in more than one language. That's quality education that also has a positive impact on Arizona.
We got to stop you right there. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute closing statement. And going in reverse order of the opening remarks, we start with Sharon Thomas.
Thank you. Again, Sharon Thomas, Superintendent of Public Instruction. Please go to SharonForArizona.com. I'm a clean elections candidate, and I believe in clean elections because it's the voters, not the donors, that matter. And in this case, it's the parents, students, and teachers of Arizona that we need to support so that we can bring Arizona to a successful future. So please, we need to prepare our students for college, career, and life. Vote Sharon for Arizona. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And for our final closing remarks, we turn to David Garcia.
Ted, thank you. Sharon, appreciate the opportunity. Democrats have a chance Arizona has a chance this year to elect a qualified, experienced educator, but it's going to take leadership and hard work to get it done. In this case, the choice is clear. I invite viewers to look at both campaigns. Go to our websites, go to our social media and Facebook pages. How you see we're running our campaigns is the kind of effort and leadership you're going to see as superintendent. On my side, what you're going to see is Democratic leaders that you support also support my campaign. Fred Duvall wants me to win. So does Terry Goddard, and so do many other elected Democrats. Likewise, you're going to see organizations that you trust that also back my campaign. Planned Parenthood, the Arizona Education Association, Democracy for America. And last, you're going to see the kind of broad-based support that's necessary to win in August and in November. I'm proud to have our Chambers of Commerce on board. What education needs are some wins down at the state level, and that's what I can deliver.
All right. Thank you, candidates, and thank you for watching this special Vote 2014 Clean Elections debate featuring the Democratic candidates for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Arizona Horizon's next debate will take place tomorrow, July 15th, when we hear from Republicans running for Superintendent of Public Instruction. And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.